I'm back. The second article I read is From Republican Motherhood to Race Suicide. This was probably my favorite article of the two I read. And it was interesting to me how through the three eras, so I like how they broke it up, but through the three eras, women's role in education is relegated to the need of society. So as that need starts to, as women's education starts to break away, or they start to, or need of society are seemingly hurt by women's education, you start to see it. You see the backlash and push against it. But starting with the Romantic period, women were educated to educate their sons to essentially become better wives. So they're still, even though they're allowed out to to get knowledge and to become better citizens, they're still it is all funneling them back into the private sphere. Um, the men need to be educated, and the women are going to educate the men. It's like if you want to listen to Hamilton, I'm a big fan of Hamilton. But there's a line in it where he said, Aaron Burr, one of the characters says, "Ladies, tell your husbands vote for Burr." It's that the women should know so they can tell the men, because the men are the doers. Because the women can have knowledge, but they can't do. This starts to, as we get into the reform era, starts I feel like to break away a little bit, particularly John Raymond, I believe his name is, of Vassar. Um, he starts pushing that women should go to college and they should be educated. Again, there's a state need involved. So while at first it was being a Republican mother, essentially helping those who would lead the country be able to lead, this is now, as Raymond says, that we should not deprive them of their ability to serve their country. So we should not deprive them of the ability to help the state in its needs. Is how I took that. But there definitely start seeing an explosion of women's colleges, of one woman going to college, and again, there's still this undercurrent of they should be able to know so they can help, not so much they can know so they can lead, and not so much that they should know for their own edification, but as a way to help the society that they're in progress. But still, a lot more women are going to college. You start to see the typical biological mess start to pop up. It's gonna affect their ability to have children, and they're gonna be hurt. Um, there's uh, one, what was it? The book by Edward Clark. He says that higher education would damage women's health and ultimately inhibit their reproductive capacity. I don't. Side note: I don't know how doctors like what science was back then. Because I don't know how like not being in at the home or being educated hurts your reproductive system. But that's just me. I don't understand. Back to topic. Um, you also the book mentioned about respectable spinsterhood. Um, so it's although we are going to ask them to go to college and be educated, this is the one area, it's in a sense, that you can not be married. It's like if you are knowledgeable, then it's respectable for you to not be married, which is this weird, it's like weird give and take. And I think I think as a minority, um, I think you see, I think it jumps out to me when I read through history, this sort of like paternalistic nature is kind of how we start to succeed. Um, so by making women's colleges, by making strictly black colleges, Latino serving institutions, it's like we don't want you involved with us, but you can have your own thing, and that eventually helps those groups succeed, which I always think is a weird um, conundrum. It's not necessarily good, but I mean, you can't. I don't think you can really say that it's been bad. Um, but again, this is another area that I thought kind of jumped out at me. And then the progressive era and the race suicide, which It's like the race suicide, where it's, oh man, this was interesting because you got, it's like racial fears were put onto sexist fears. It's like, well, if as more women are going to college, less of them are getting married, and this is where again the state's need is the state feels like it's got to have its wives. So if women's education is taken away from that, we need to shut that down right now. Um, if the invention of birth control, what is this? Like Teddy Roosevelt, a people's choice man, but not woman's choice. Um, the anytime I see this, like the race suicide, it's like, well, if these white women aren't having children, if they're getting educated, then the immigrants, or forgot the blacks, might end up, running the country. And so education, again, education is seen as this like this weapon, this ability, this knowledge will provide you the ability to lead, to be in charge, to know things. Um, but around this time too, which is all interesting, is that the women who came before the progressive era, as at in a weird way, as they made college more acceptable for women to go to, it started becoming less elitist. And so the averages, the not maybe the not the most wealthy people start going to college, and maybe they are not getting the 4.0s or 3.9s, and so they become regular. And so the women who came before are kind of afraid, like, well, we had to prove that we were the best of the best of the best. And your people who are coming in now are kind of ruining that. But I think it also starts to make people ask the question, well, why is it that women are held to this higher standard? Why do they have to have the perfect of the perfect grades to succeed? And that's what one of my questions will be: is do we still have this kind of pressure? Is there still this sort of elite um, success need that we place on women in college? Because I think personally that we are more tolerant of men not being in college or being in higher education than we are with women. Um, and like men can are sort of allowed to, I think, learn a trade, and it's considered more acceptable. And men can become, like, if you became a mechanic or electrician or plumber or some other trade, I think that would be more okay for men than for what we expect for women. Um, and I think that, at least anecdotally, a lot of the women I know in college feel this need to succeed and be like the best, um, because otherwise, then they're proving that women, aren't able to succeed. They aren't able to be in college. But that same pressure is never applied to men. At least that's what I think. But I'm interested in what class has to say about that. Um, but I mention all that because I think now that expectation of women going to college, in the article it mentions a socially sanctioned endeavor. So I think now we're expecting, well, now that women can go to college, well, you should go to college school. What else are you going to do? So again, that the sexism of men have these lists of things that they are able to do. You want to go to college? No. You want to military, sports, whatever, whatever, whatever. Women now it became life or college. Well, then what are you going to do? Um, and so interesting, like as you have that sort of reaction to more women going to college, you now also have this backlash from men who are like, well, what is happening? These women are becoming educated, and then as they become educated, that means they'll take more of a lead, and the U.S. will become more feminized. Um, which again, there's so many other like sociological components to this article, and to really all higher education, that I could go on and on, but I'll try to stick just to the article. Um, but I think the question really I really kept floating in my mind is, how we still tie, and do we still tie women's education to the needs of the state? Like, through this entire article, I felt like, oh, Republican motherhood, need of the state. Oh, women need being able to have enough, ability to serve their country. If they ever go to war, they need to have that knowledge. okay, still needs of the state. And not to say that the state's needs are bad, but it's not what we should have a good society where people are happy and healthy. So that's why we should make sure they have access to education to know what can they provide to the state. Um, and I can't really think of examples of that now, but I don't know if I'm just being blind to it. But that's really kind of the thought that kept going through my head. But this was a really good article, um, and it was really interesting to see the progression and sort of the things that tied all these eras together. And it was almost like they never really broke apart. It was more they were just like stretched out, and that similar issues were kind of twisted in different ways. And as more women start to go, different issues start to appear, and it's just like it's kind of never ending. But the same kind of core issues still arise. Oh, I'm at 11 minutes.